Hey guys.
Do you know what just happened with the audio?
No, that was really weird though.
We'll just go anyway.
Hey guys, it's Chrissy.
And it's Lauren.
And this is Ghoul Groove.
Ooh. Parents strongly cautioned. The following programs are intended for mature audiences over the age of 18.
These programs may contain some material that many parents would not find suitable for children and may include intense violence, sexual situations, coarse language, and suggestive dialogue.
Satanic Panic.
Welcome to the 1980s,
Backmasking and hidden messages were all the talk.
where heavy metal pushes boundaries and fuels the youth.
Angered parentals fight back, but so do the artists.
But what is Satanic Panic?
Satanic Panic is a moral panic consisting of over 12,000 unsustained cases of satanic ritual abuse, starting in the United States.
Building up to the panic, a lot of movies came out, like 1968's Rosemary's Baby, 1973 The Exorcist, and 1976 The Omen. When you think Satanic Panic, you think 80s, but started a lot earlier. It just wasn't as big as it was in the 1980s.
Artists like Black Sabbath led the heavy metal movement. Their first album, self-titled, was the first to mention these darker religious themes.
And many other artists and bands mention those themes and backmasking, bands like Pink Floyd, Queen, Slayer, Cradle of Filth. And I wanted to talk about Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven. There's an infamous verse on there that if you play it backwards, it will say something along the lines like, "Here's to my sweet Satan," or something like that.
So it was kind of originally said that one of the first, panics of this time was with the publication of a book called Michelle Remembers, and it was co-written by a Canadian psychiatrist named Lawrence Pastor, I think that's how you say it, and his patient and future wife, who was named Michelle Smith, which used the controversial and now desecrated practice of recovered memory therapy to use claims about satanic ritual abuse involving Michelle Smith, his future wife, which is crazy. And says the allegations which arose afterward throughout much of the United States involved reports of physical and sexual abuse of people in the context of occult or satanic rituals. Some allegations involve a conspiracy of a global satanic cult that includes the wealthy and elite, in which the children are abducted or bred for human sacrifice, pornography, or prostitution. So, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So people thought the book itself was just ridiculous. It documents Michelle's repressed memories that were recovered during therapy sessions under Panzer. Most of the stories involve scenarios that wouldn't feel out of place in a B-grade exploitation movie of the time period. And there are even cameos from Jesus, the Virgin Mary, and Archangel Michael, who all appeared to save Michelle from a ritual attended by Satan himself. The Holy Trinity then erased her terrible memories and scars until the time was right. In 2016, Michelle Remembers would be dismissed as a horror pulp novel full of cheap schlock and outlandish fantasy. But then it was accepted as clinical fact and used a guide by law enforcement, courts, medical professionals, and concerned citizens. In 1984, a pastor would serve as a consultant during the McMartin preschool trial, which would last for 6 years and, like his book, was debunked. However, at that time, the McMartin trial sent alarm bells ringing throughout the country, as the accusations involved nursery children being sexually abused by daycare workers who were supposedly part of a satanic cult.
So, like Chrissy was just talking about, also, we didn't really touch on it before Chrissy started reading it, but the McMartin preschool trial was kind of like this whole trial going on about, those people who seemed like they were in the occult, doing things in nurseries, being with the kids and working there or whatever. And I remember watching an interview of a bunch of, gothic punk rock people on a literal television show being interviewed, and they asked one girl, she had a full mohawk thing going on, she had the punk rock metal look, and they were asking her they were asking all of them, like, where do you work? And a lot of them were like, yeah, well, I go to school, I'm working a bunch, like I have all of these jobs. And they asked her, and she had like the spikes on her head, and like it was shaped on the sides, but if she pulls it down, I guess it looks normal. She was like, I work in a daycare. And they were all like, I wouldn't let my kid within like a 10-foot pole of you, and like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's just crazy to me. And that's kind of like why I think like things like this were happening, was just because so many people had like these like, perceptions on them, and like, I don't know, just had this image in their head of what those people were.
And there was a lot of false media, I feel like, that the parents were getting from the news, maybe like newspapers, TV, I don't know. And I feel like some of it might have influenced some people in the wrong way. Like maybe some people actually wanted to join that, even though it wasn't really happening. Because I remember seeing something, I was listening to another podcast at one time, and it said that satanic worshipers burned down a church, but that's because I think they were like consuming maybe that media, even though it was false. I'm not sure. Okay, so I kind of wanted to talk about Richard Ramirez for a second, who is the Night Stalker. And we all know the 1980s was like the time when he was... Well, the 70s is when serial killers were kind of a thing. And then the 80s is when it was more of the satanic way. And in the courtroom, there's a picture of him holding up his hand, and he has a pentagram on his hand. And yeah, basically my point is just like the 80s in general is like when the whole Satanic Panic thing was happening. So he was probably surrounded by all of this, and he liked it.
Yeah. It brought darkness kind of to light.
Like that.
He was crazy. It brought darkness to light.
He's the true side of the Satanic Panic, because he actually believed in it and worshipped it. And then there's the side that, like Dee Snider, he's like...
Yeah, he's like, why am I being hated on for this?
Yeah, so a lot of people would just like want to misinterpret things. Like I bet a lot of the parents thought, oh, like these rock bands inspire people like him. Well, and they didn't want their kids to turn out like Richard Ramirez.
Yeah, well, another big one was like I know a lot of people, I watched in one of the interviews, I don't know what I was watching, but somebody was talking about how like one of the kids who recently died of suicide was listening to AC/DC. And it's like, okay, but AC/DC didn't make them do that. Yeah. Kind of thing. And so a lot of people, and I guess it's just because people who like darker music tend to have, sometimes like mental health issues and stuff, but that's not due to the music. The music is usually the thing that's helping those people like cope with how they're feeling. And so like, I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. They were blaming that those kinds of things were coming from the music, and it's like,
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we kind of just went over some like really basic information on everything, and now we're going to get into, just some like stuff we researched.
Yeah, conversations. We're just going to yap.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So one of the main things that I looked up with all of this was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. He had a really interesting court hearing with, I believe they're called...
And this man was very smart, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, super duper smart. Oh, and John Denver also. Oh, it's the PMRC. But John Denver and Frank Zappa.
I love Frank Zappa.
All had, I know, and they all went in and did their own hearings for this. But we watched all, or at least the 30 minutes that they had of the trial for him. And they were basically trying to talk about, not necessarily like, we're not going to take it, but just in general about, what's funny is, to me, it was not even as much about like Twisted Sister.
Just rock in general.
Rock in general, and he kind of got the worst of it.
Yeah, and he was defending himself and saying that he's like a good Christian, like he doesn't believe in any of like the bad things like worshiping Satan and stuff like that. Like he was like, he can't speak for others but for himself. And they just kept attacking him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's so strange because it was literally, so it was Senator Gore and Tipper Gore, who was the senator's wife. And basically a lot of the conversation was basically about like, how are they supposed to know if this is a good album that they should be showing their kids and, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't want my kid listening to this. And it's like, well, if you care that much, go listen to the album.
Yeah, like don't just...
But, like, you can't blame it on rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not going to take it, because they did bring it up at the end. Like, that has nothing bad in it at all.
We were literally, we both sat here for a minute and we were like singing the song. We were like, I don't even know where in that song. Like
he's just like, we're not gonna take it.
Not gonna take it. And I guess I'm like, I don't know if it's just because like rock and roll has that like rebellion.
Yeah, and they were talking about his music video too.
That music video was because of the song Under the Blade. And so, like, that one, they were like, it's got terms of, like, bondage. And
yeah, and he said it's about surgery.
And he was like, I wrote this song because one of our band members was going into his surgery, and he said he was scared. So we kind of wrote, like, a song about the fear of, you know, going into surgery under the blade. You expect it's like this bright light shining down on you and you're strapped down, and then what if you don't like make it through, or what if something goes wrong? And it's like that kind of
I was like, but you didn't mention the hospital. And he's like, yeah, I didn't mention bondages either though.
Yeah, well, and no, the bondages I think he did talk about, because like how you get strapped down.
Oh yeah, okay.
And like that's fine, but he goes, I never anywhere mentioned this being about a woman.
Yeah.
And then he goes, well, you never mentioned it being about, you know, a hospital. And he was like, I didn't think that took that much interpretation to realize.
Like, you can interpret lyrics as your own imagination.
Well, and that's the beauty of being, like, a listener, is you can relate to certain things, or you can take things how you want to.
Yeah, and they just kept going at him.
I know. But it was an interesting interview, to be honest. I feel like he did such a good job, like, defending himself.
He spoke really well. He did not stutter.
No, I was, like, looking stuff up, and apparently he graduated college with, like, an English major or an English degree, I guess. And his mom was a college professor, so don't quote me on that. But I think that's what I remember reading.
And he kept saying he doesn't do drugs, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. And that's what you think of when you
all those
rock and roll.
And some are, you know, for sure. But like, especially to have him on the stand was probably the funniest thing.
Yeah, because he was like,
I have Christian morals. He was
good
like,
one.
yeah, I know. But it's also a thing. He's like, but then he talked about how like AC/DC. So let's talk about like AC/DC, for example. You have like Hell's Bells, Highway to Hell.
Yeah, and he said that since he doesn't believe in that stuff, but he loves their music and it doesn't affect him.
Exactly.
So he's just going to listen to it.
When he was also, even at one point, he was kind of talking about how like to him, like language, like, you know, dirty language, I guess, isn't, you know, something that to him affects his beliefs in Christian faith or whatever. And so it's like, because I guess like what was their like band like fandom name?
Oh, I forget.
Fandom's probably, well, I mean it is like a fandom, but that just feels very like
he said
fandom.
it and then everyone laughed.
Yeah, well, it was like FMF.
Wasn't there a P in there somewhere? Or
no, well, no, it was an. It was like It was like TMFT. It was like TMFT, and it was like the motherfucking. What was it? The motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister or something like that. And I was like, that's so funny. And he was like, I mean, like, what do you want me to say? It's literally calling them the Friends of Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
Like
they're not called like the devils
gang,
of like the
occult. Like,
yeah.
like what? Okay, so one other thing I wanted to bring up was the parental advisory sticker. So kind of after all of this was when that came about.
And we see it everywhere nowadays.
Everywhere. Like every quote unquote good album of today's day and age has a parental advisory sticker.
If you could tell from our intro, we added a little
parental advisory, like
inspired
thing.
by this. So
yeah, we were like, we've really, like I said earlier, and we said I think last episode, we're trying to kind of find, I guess we didn't say
more
it earlier,
more creative intros,
and they're so fun to do.
Really, it really is.
But yeah, no, with that, like, so we talked about like Dee Snider's interview, and there were a bunch of other ones, like, you know, John Denver, and we mentioned a few other ones, but all of those like court meetings basically just turned into them having to put parental advisory stickers on albums that were suggestive in literally any way, down to like
just
alcohol, drugs, occult, which that one kind of makes some sense, like darker.
And sometimes occult things are just themes. It's not something that the artist truly believes in.
Exactly. It's a topic and like an idea. But, with the parental advisory stickers, I remember somebody in one of the videos, I was like doing research on other people's like YouTube videos and things, and they were just kind of talking about how like those parental advisory stickers practically told kids which albums to go buy.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of that was like, parents aren't going to want you to want this. And so the kids are like, I want it.
Yeah, now that it has the sticker, it's like the cool thing. So
Yeah,
they're
it's
like,
the cool thing that's like off limits and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, and now just a little bit of background on what backmasking is, because I know we've kind of mentioned it, but backmasking is basically when artists would print vinyl, they would make it so that whenever you played it backwards, if you were to, rewind, make it go the opposite direction, it would have some hidden message. And some were, lighthearted, and some had these what seemed to be satanic sides to them.
Okay, we're going to talk about backmasking now, which is used in a lot of songs. It's just the reversal of lyrics, and the Beatles have used it. Purple Rain by Prince. Mm-hmm. There's a lyric that says...
from that album, but it's from Darling Nikki.
Yeah. So backwards it says, "Hello, how are you? I am fine because I know that the Lord is coming soon." And that's a very popular one.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because they even brought that up in like one of the trials. They were talking about how like, well, I bought Purple Rain for my daughter, and how was I to know like certain, things that talks about in the beginning of the song, but like that's what's in the background is so funny to me because it's very like sexual stuff talked about in the song. But if you listen to the back of that, I just think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's so random too. Mm-hmm. Like, what is that? And then there's an early one from the 1950s. Car Trouble by the Eligibles. And most of the backwards songs, it's like very innocent. Mm-hmm. Like they're not saying anything like devil worshipy or anything like that. It's mainly just a lyric that's just backwards. Should we play it?
I mean, we can. Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
Something I wanted to say about that is exactly what that audio reminded me of? Another Brick in the Wall. It reminds me of Pink Floyd. That sounds like listening. Like it reminds me of the the scene or the part of Another Brick in the Wall where it says, if you don't eat your meat, you can't have any pudding. How can you have any pudding if you don't eat your meat? And that's exactly the voice like he's talking it. Yeah. That was so funny to me.
And then there's a part that says, "Now look at here, stop running these records backwards." Mm-hmm. And it's just like a fun thing that people added to songs, but sometimes it does sound a little creepy.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of intentional.
Okay, so one other one is actually by the band Slayer, and they were a band that was already very known for controversies, so theirs being the most, creepy occult type one, or like cult straight up, would make sense. And it was for their song Hell Awaits. And it literally just says over and over again, if you play the vinyl backwards. So all of this would have to be on vinyl and you would have to literally like rewind it. But it would say, join us, join us, join us. And like a join us, like a chant, like a chant. Join us. Yeah, it's like kind of creepy. But yeah, that one would make sense.
Another one of my favorite bands, Eagles, and their song Hotel California. If you play one of the verses backwards, it says, "Hey, Satan hears this, he had me believe." And Lauren and I just heard it, and it does sound like it.
The first time we listened, I wasn't sure what it said.
Yeah.
And this is also another one of those things where all of this can be like...
just what you want to hear.
What you want to hear. It's giving the blue gold, or what is it, the blue and black, and gold and or white or whatever.
And the laurel and...
Yeah.
Was
Yanny. Yeah, all that stuff where it's like, you hear what you want to hear kind of thing.
At first we didn't hear it, and then we saw the words, text on it, and we were like, okay.
Okay, yeah. But here it is.
Let us know if you guys heard it.
Okay, so that's kind of going to wrap up our, Satanic Panic, backmasking episode topic. But now we're going to jump into our favorites.
Yes.
You want to go first, Chrissy?
Yeah, okay, so I've been listening to kind of a mix of genres. Venus by Frankie Avalon. I think this is from the 1950s. I had like a past life regression thing about this song.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember you telling me.
Yeah, this. I posted this on TikTok before. Like this song, every time I hear it, I don't know why I get like transported back. I'm like, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. I just get really emotional with it. And then Adios by Johnny. It's more of like an indie kind of song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you played that earlier.
Yeah. And then Paces by Feeble Little Horse. This song is just really good. Go give it a listen. It's also an indie song. Those are my songs.
Awesome. Okay, I'll give my couple really quickly. So let me find them. I gotta pull up my camera roll. Okay, so for me, my first one, we're each doing 3 today, we just decided. But Pile Driver Waltz by Alex Turner, that's the lead singer of the Arctic Monkeys, but it's like his solo work. That song is so good. Probably one of my favorite songs. It's like on my top list now. Then the song Back to Strangers by Rehash. I actually posted that on my story the other day when I posted the picture of my cat.
Yeah.
That was the song on there. And then I've been just obsessed with Everything She Wants by Wham right now. That's why I was playing it earlier. But yeah, I've heard that song before, but it just like, you know when you like re-listen to a song and it just like gets a second life again?
Yes.
That's it right now. But yeah, let's go into like shows we're watching.
Okay. So the shows I've been watching right now, just Cobra Kai again. Mm-hmm. I'm on season 5 now. I binged it like crazy. Mm-hmm. There's literally only 6 seasons, so I'm almost done. And then I just finished the last season of School Spirits.
Oh, fun.
I think there was just I think this was the 2nd season. And I really hope they do a season 3. It was really, really good. You guys should go check it out.
Yeah, and I've been watching, I swear it's been 2 days and I've watched both seasons. Well, both seasons that have been out of The White Lotus. Oh my God. It's so good. I was like on the edge of my seat now. All of the characters are kind of aggravating, but I literally binged them the past 2 days. But yeah, I love like a good like murder mystery and it's kind of funny and witty and whatever. But yeah, it's been interesting. I don't know. It's funny because everyone says they really love the 2nd season, but I liked it, but I don't know if it's because I watched them like back to back that like you kind of already know what's gonna happen. Yeah. I mean, it's a different story, someone different. It's gonna be a different plot of it, but you know, like somebody died. Who is it? I'm watching. Like you're like, I know it's coming. Just tell me, that kind of thing. But I still really liked it. Like I'm very interested. Like I've been watching it like back to back to back. But season 3 just apparently is coming out like every Sunday. A new episode. So
another thing that I've been obsessed with is Pinterest. Like I go through the phases of I'm always on Pinterest, but sometimes I'm on Pinterest. And I've been making a lot of new boards lately, just like home inspo, 70s homes, like interior, 1950s, 60s. Just love home interior. And I like to go on Pinterest to look at it.
Okay, so this is still kind of a show, but this guy, his YouTube channel is called Channel 33 RPM, and I love his videos, and he does a lot of like music, vinyl, controversy stuff, but all music related, and like his stuff's really cool, and like we've gotten a lot of inspo for like episode topics and things like that to, you know, inspire us. But yeah, he's awesome, and if you are interested in like some of the stuff like we talked about in this episode, I think you'll really like his channel. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our episode.
Thanks for listening, and make sure to comment like your theories or what you've heard about Satanic Panic things. We want to hear.
Yeah, so. But thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys
in the next episode.
Woo, bye.
Bye.